In this video, we're going to do problem number 48 on page 384, section 6.2, to illustrate the decisions you make with combining means or standard deviations or variances when you actually combine two different random variables. Whether the random variables are independent or dependent will affect your answer, so we must decide whether the two events we're about to read are actually independent or dependent. Now, independent or dependent, that only affects your variance calculations. Whether two variables are independent or dependent, it has no effect on the mean. You can add the means together regardless. All right. Imagine that we randomly select a day from the past 10 years. Let X be the recorded rainfall on this date at the airport in Orlando, Florida, and Y is the recorded rainfall on this date at Disney World just outside Orlando. So those two events, X, rainfall at Orlando, Florida, at the airport, Y, rainfall at Disney World just outside Orlando, so not in the same spot, but very close. Understand the two different variables. Suppose that you know the means, mu x, mu y, and the variances, sigma x squared, sigma y squared of both variables. A, is it reasonable to take the mean of the total rainfall x plus y to be mu x plus mu y? Explain your answer. So as we stated, regardless if the two events are independent or dependent, as long as you have two random variables, the mean of the sums is the sum of the means. Okay, so this part A, you can do whether these are independent or dependent. Okay, and we haven't decided that yet. So always, when you have two random variables, the mean of the sums is the sum of the means. Part B asks, is it reasonable to take the variance of the total rainfall to be sigma x squared plus sigma y squared? Explain your answer. Now, variance only works, variance sum can only be done if two events are independent. So you as a student have to decide, are these two events, rain at Orlando Airport and rain in Disney World, independent? Well, these two places are pretty close to each other. If you've ever been to Florida, you would know how close. It's probably about 10, 20 minutes. So not in the exact same spot, but they're pretty close. So if it rains at Orlando Airport, you have to ask yourself, does that have any effect whether or not it rains at Disney World and vice versa? The answer is yes, it does have some effect. If it rains at Orlando Airport, the probability of it raining at Disney World is higher. Is it a guarantee? No, but the probability is definitely affected. So these two events are dependent. And when they are dependent, not independent, you can't use this equation. You actually can't add them together like this at all. On a further advanced stats class, you could, but for the basics right now, we're telling a little white lie and saying you can't. So because these two events are dependent, you cannot add the variances. If they are dependent, though, going back to A, whether they're independent or dependent, the sum or the mean of the sum is the sum of the means. That's no big deal. But the variances you could not do for this problem. So always check whether or not the events are independent or dependent for variance. For mean, it won't matter.